First of all, I think your analysis was very straight line.
Kid, you cannot tell your neighbor he is stealing ducks when you are stealing funds.
As High Commissioner, I was wrong. As Charandas Prasad, I reacted naturally how any person would have.
I did not come here for that kind of abuse. I did not come here for that kind of abuse. If you're going to go down that road, I'll walk off.
But it's all okay once they're talking. If they were talking, I could not have been here today.
You got ADHD.
I got nothing.
Calm down.
I think I've done enough in terms of taking our team out of trouble from losing.
Tomorrow, Taylor. That's good. I'm reading the script now, and the first person that comes to my mind to play a detective,
Yes,
but
the
an
Chinese
erratic
Mikhail
detective, is Mikhail Rodriguez.
Why an African slap an Indian? Why a man and slap a woman? Look, how you deal with that?
We must encourage platforms like this because it brings together different people and allows for discussions to take place in our country on a multiplicity of fundamental issues.
You apologizing for something you think I did is wrong. I don't want you to do that, and you should not have done that. You are watching the Gildarie Freddie Kissoon Show. Last Monday, we completed 1 year of this show, and we thank you for being here. We thank our guests that graced the studio for the past year. Both of our guests were here before. We come to you Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 8:30 to 9:30. When there's a call-in program, we go to 10 o'clock. We have in our studio this evening two fine third-party minds that I have met. I have known them personally. They were important second-tier leaders in the AFC and also rose beyond second tier. One was a parliamentarian and his constituency was assigned to Linden. The other was a personal aide to the Minister of Public Security, and he was the Deputy General Secretary for the party. And he later went to China to do his PhD. So we have two minds this evening that I know personally. And why I got to know them personally is because I like their politics. Their politics were multiracial, but their politics was not sycophantic. Their politics was not to praise the leaders and to speak to the leaders to tell them things that they did not agree with. And that is why I came close to these two gentlemen. One of them, of course, I knew a long, long time before we ever thought of joining a political party. This evening, we have two persons that were in the studio before. And I'm sure, given the topics to follow, it will be an interesting program. Leonard Craig was one of the foundation members. I think founding members and foundation members, there's a slight difference. But he was one of the foundation members of the Alliance for Change. When the party got into power, he became the personal aide to the Minister of Public Security, Kemba Dramjatan, and he held the post of Deputy General Secretary for the AFC. The other person is Audwin Rutherford, Member of Parliament in the AFC, for the AFC. Both of them sat in the executive committee of the Alliance for Change. We will have, I am sure, an exciting discussion because we're going to probe the nature of politics in the past and what's to come, but we're going to speak of the party that these two gentlemen helped to mold, to expand, and eventually to achieve power in 2015. What has happened to that golden moment? Has it disappeared? Will there ever be an AFC again? Is there likely to be a third party to sweep the horizon as AFC did? Those are questions that when they're answered, they will form part of Guyana's historiography. So tonight, Leonard Craig and Audwin Rutherford, former second tier or maybe first tier leaders of the Alliance for Change. Leonard, thanks for being here again. And we had Audwin. Now, we go alphabetically when there is more than one guest. So C is before R. So we'll start with Leonard Craig. Leonard, no country, I think few countries, the politics of which is more exciting than Guyana. I've been writing columns for 35 years, and I said that many times. This country's politics is very exciting. We just had the local government elections, and we had the mayor in the studio. We had Michael Carrington in the studio, Harbour John from Berbice, which the two of you would know Carrington personally. You will know Gobin Harbour John personally. There seemed to be, especially on the part of the mayor, about the results of the LGE. He definitely don't see it as any big showcase for the PPP. My analysis tells me different. Rutherford, Audwin was, I think, a candidate in Linden. So if we can start out first with the LGE, then we'll go on to Alliance for Change, we go on to politics. Leonard, what's you're an educated man. What is your analysis of the 2023 LGE?
Thanks for having me as your guest tonight. Freddie, there are a couple of things that we should focus on with respect to LGE. There is a definite shift, a little shift in the results. And this could be attributed to the presence of the AFC. If there is such a thing, the past presence of the AFC. Because, of course, they weren't present in this last election. Now, the AFC was able to capture a group of people that are multiracial in their thinking, that are multiracial in the way they view politics in Guyana and things like that. And remember, the AFC has been around now for about 18 years. And up until the point when they lost power was in existence for 15 years. And they are people in their 30s and 40s who have never voted for any other party. They are people in their 30s and 40s. And let's zero in on Afro-Guyanese first, and then we can branch off. And just give me a 2 minutes to just
take as much time.
So there is a core of Afro-Guyanese in Guyana who have never voted for the PNC. So you wouldn't go into any constituency and find a humongous large group of these people any specific place, but sprinkled across the country in a proportional representation system, they are sufficient to cause a shift in seat counts. And we know that when people voted for the AFC got in their first outing, I think 5 seats, and in their second outing 7 seats, and things like that. And these votes are sufficient enough to cause a seat count. Now, in the present construct of the local government election, the PPP was the biggest beneficiary from the AFC not contesting. And what I mean by that, these are people who will not be swayed by chants of soup drinker, chants of house Negro, chants, that kind of thing. They will not be swayed by that because they have no connection, no sympathies necessarily, for the want of a better word, for the PNC, the way traditional Afro PNC voters are. And because of that, and because they have a more multiracial outlook, they tend to respond to any party or whichever party that has the greatest display of a multiracial message. And in this past election, the PPP was out there or won that particular messaging. And so AFC voters of Afro descent naturally shifted to the PPP. For those who still have some doubts, you go to Mocha and look at the results, for example, in Mocha between 2016, 2018 and now. The PPP couldn't get a single vote, but in 2018, AFC won 1 seat. AFC did not run this time. The PPP got 1 seat. And my analysis is that these are people largely who have never really voted for the PNC, and they don't have that tie, that feeling, that thing, and they select their party largely, not only, but largely based on that messaging. And as I said just now, in this particular election, PPP won that messaging. And so they won the greater portion of those voters. You go across the country, in Linden, the votes that PPP picked up in Linden, and Audwin might be able to expand more on that. The votes that PPP picked up in Linden is almost equivalent to the total number of votes they pick up in all of Region 10. It's almost equal to the total number of votes they picked up in all of Region 10. And they picked up that amount in Linden alone. And so when people try to wish those numbers away, the numbers tell a different story. There's a similar thing happening among Indo voters, but not as many. They are urban based, and they more respond to smaller parties. So it is not the same trend. And if the PPP continue with that messaging, tweaking it a bit and things like that, the AFC would be unable to recapture those votes. Unable in 2025, whether part of a coalition or by themselves, will be unable to recapture those votes. Because Guyanese people, when they vote, they start a pattern. Some people shifted in 2006 from PNC, some from PPP, went to the AFC, and they voted that way for the 15 to 18 years. And that kind of trend, and I think the AFC might be unable to regain their footing.
Quite a mouthful, but quite analytical. I am sure our viewers, and mostly those interested in the LGE results, are going to put some elaboration in that, because the point about the PPP votes in Mocha is quite interesting. I honestly didn't know. I didn't follow all the results. I didn't know that with Mocha. But now we have a man who is a candidate. And as this program goes on, I'm going to tell you something he said to me when he was on this program 2 weeks ago as we stood by our cars. And he said something to me that was never made public. But I am going to make it public, even if I am on the screen now and he jokes me and say, no, don't do it. I am going to do it because it was quite a revelation, and it shows the mindset of the AFC when they're in power. But Audwin Rutherford, what happened in Linden? The PPP now has two seats in Linden. Why didn't they lose? Why didn't they lose completely?
Freddie, thanks for having me. And let me say, the analysis done by Leno just now was quite a mouthful, and he used the Mocha example to show where AFC might not have been in those elections, and therefore those votes transfer straight to PPP. But I want to feel that there are about 10 to 12% of Guyanese who are very fluid in their voting patterns. I really do believe that. Fluid in the sense that I am not sure where they will likely vote in the next election. And any smart party, as the PPP did with the messaging, they were able to hold on to a majority of that group of persons. Because those are persons that, because of messaging and because of what the party in office or in opposition might have done during the period in office or during the period between elections, they would change their voting patterns. And I'm convinced about that. What I note in Linden, Freddie, I recall in 2016, PPP was without a seat. The coalition got 15 seats and an independent party got 1 seat, and quickly the particular candidate said they really PNC. When you in 2018, it was 1 seat for PPP and AFC 2, and the other seats for PNC. Now, in that coalition, I would have said, be careful. If you can move from 0 to 1, for me it was a concern. Something is happening. If you were able to blank these people in 2016, and now you cannot blank them be at 1, and I saw growth. And therefore, our messaging was directly targeted to no race 8, and which Leno alluded to, which is really the proper message to have in Guyana if you want to have that pullover votes. So I think those persons who are kind of fluid, those persons who can vote for one party and vote for next, they were able to come over and vote for us. It is bandied about that it wasn't significant, but to have votes being 400 and change to 2,400, that is significant in any
Of course,
in any
it
part.
has to be.
So some persons are putting a new concept I heard yesterday or when on the Bork show about reservoir. You're just going into your reservoir and taking these votes that you had there all the time. But what the analysis
That's
in that show,
speaking of reservoir.
the analysis in that
What
show,
is reservoir votes?
the analysis came short because you're mentioning the votes for national election as against regional election, but you're not saying the same statement for your votes, because you would have had about 20,000 votes in the national election of 2015. Why, or 2020? Why were you unable to get about that amount in the local government? You got 8,000. So something you did not attract your reservoir. So to me, you can clearly debunk that, and that is a statement from losers. They're trying to hold on to something. They're trying to hold on that there's no way you can put these figures. If you superimpose the figures 2023 as against 2020, you'll clearly see a red line going up and a green line going down. And that's the bottom line. Even the smallest child would see that and can understand that. Why, Daddy, this one is bigger now and that one is smaller? There was a transfer of vote, and Leno would have put it down to AFC vote. But Leno, importantly, you said that. For me, in my speech, I would have tried to, and even on the show there, last time I was here, I would have been appealing to the AFC persons to vote for someone who can accommodate you. And I felt that PPP can accommodate the past AFC voters rather than the PNC accommodating them. You would have said that there was a direct shift with those voters. I might want to say it's trouble now for AFC because their leadership, to me, showed a clear indication of a support for PNC APNO in those elections. And I I think you might want to agree, there were a number of the leadership on show, whatever, and they were showing close to publicly campaigning, very close to that. And therefore, if you were shifting to PNC in your leadership, but the bottom, the voters, Leno is saying clearly went to the PPP. And I might want to tend to agree with Leno that took place. And that spelled even more trouble for the AFC when the voters would have moved away from them, but their leadership might have been moving in a different direction. To me, that is something seriously to be considered and examined.
I know I would be accused of incompetence in journalism. And I know when the show is over, people will say, man, you have 2 executive members of the AFC. You had 2 executive members when they were in power. These men had power, and you're not going to ask them about the AFC and when the AFC was in power. And I think you will agree with me that the charge of incompetence will be leveled at me if we don't go into that. So we will go into the AFC before 2015 and the AFC in power. But let's start with the long analysis of Leno just now. It's an interesting analysis, and if you spread it on the table and you read it over again, it has implications for the 2025 national elections. You want to tell us what are those implications?
Let me go back a little. When the AFC, when the WPA, for example, moved away from the coalition, I thought that the WPA stood the best chance of capturing those AFC voters, but WPA would have had to reinvent itself. I don't think that the WPA is even capable, or I don't think they want to reinvent. And as a result, they would remain non-electoral formation. I don't know if it's a political party or what the case might be. But I know most political parties in Guyana have conferences, whatever. But I believe they were better positioned. But their messaging went in one direction. And as I said, I was with the AFC from its beginning of beginnings. And I kind of understand, I rub shoulders with all the activists and the lots and lots of members at the various congresses and so on. And I have a good feel for thing. And let me just give you an example about how multiracial AFC members were. When the AFC started, they had a principle of rotation of leadership, that because these 2 leaders came from the 2 major parties, who took the lead this time around for the first 2 terms, the next leader will go, and then after that, it's open ballot. And members bought into that. And as we know, Raphael Trotman was the first leader. And there was a little bit of backpedaling when his term was completed. And Ramjitan was supposed to run for the 2011 election. And the uprising in the party, the core of the uprising against Trotman, I'm not saying this is the only thing. Other things happened that I don't wish to talk about behind the scenes. But in terms of what was happening in the forefront, Afro-Guyanese voters, Afro-Guyanese members of the AFC led a revolt within the AFC to say, look, we have an agreement. And not because Ramjitan is East Indian. Ramjitan needs to be the leader. Ramjitan needs to run. And so the members, supporters, voters for the AFC are people who have that multiracial principle in their head, and so they're not going to respond to people who are saying that because you are Afro you gotta vote this way or anything like that. They make a different type of decision. One other thing I'd like to point out is that before we move off of this election thing, quality of candidates is beginning to make a lot impact and a lot of sense in our elections. And again, this local government election demonstrated it. One example I want to give, and that is constituency number 6 in New Amsterdam. Constituency number 6 in New Amsterdam was a former APNU member who ran on behalf of the PPP. And she won the constituency for the first time, Central New Amsterdam, won the constituency outright on behalf of the PPP. Because when you do a little survey among the people in the area, people are saying that the candidate put up by APNU was not as friendly, was not as active in the community and things like that. And when there are several other examples, some right here in Georgetown as well, that quality of candidates actually won their constituency, and that's on both sides, not just PPP or anything. Both on the APNU side and on the PPP side, quality of candidates won the day. You saw in some cases where there are quality of candidates for APNU that you look at the PPP votes, they did not raise any at all. In some cases declined. In strong PPP areas, you saw that. And so parties are well advised to vet their candidates and put out quality candidates for any upcoming election, whether local or national, because voters are beginning to latch on to things like that.
When Audwin was here on this program, I think it was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I asked the question of, as a candidate, how was the reaction of the Londoners? And he said he got positive response from people, and there was a man, he said, saying, what the PPP gonna do? What the PPP gonna do for Linden now? Look, even in your own street, you was a parliamentarian in your own street, look at your street. And then when we finished the program, we went outside and we chatted before we left, he told me Audwin Rutherford's party was in power. Audwin Rutherford was a member of parliament and his constituency was Linden. And Audwin Rutherford told me 3 weeks ago when we were outside of the studio talking that his street was badly in need of repairs. And from 2015 to 2020, when his party was in power and he was a parliamentarian, they consistently asked the Minister of Public Infrastructure, which now named Public Works, to repair the street because he lives there. People are going to be asking him questions, and the street was not repaired. Audwin, and then maybe Leonard could come in here. What kind of mindset is that? I live 2 minutes drive from Giffland. When Giffland was opening, I saw ministry officials building the road from the public road into Giffland. And this thing caught my eyes. I said, what? This? You see these ministry vehicles? And I'm saying, wait, this is a private thing, a private commercial center. What? I thought they would be building this street to lead to their... And so I picked up the phone and called David Patterson. I said, look, I am right here. and I'm seeing ministry officials building this road. And he simply said to me, yes, the ministry is building the road. So the ministry built a road leading into Giftland, and their own parliamentarian street was not repaired. Now tell me something. What kind of theorizing you put to that? And what kind of description, political description or analysis you put to that?
Freddie, you're looking for a response from me, but it is what it is. That was the thinking at that stage by those folks. They might have had some reason for doing that. As you would say, my neighbors, etc., will look forward to seeing at least, you don't really call that favor. That is just simple politics, because persons feel that at least if you...
Well, you're going to lose.
Yeah, you're going to lose.
If you're the parliamentarian street thing, people are going to say, why I going to vote for you? Next time they're going to say, why I going to vote? We look the street and you're your party in power. That was part of the morbid character of the AFC, and that party had to disappear. I mean, everywhere in the world, if Biden belongs to Delaware, and a stream in Delaware is being poisoned with some kind of chemical water, you would expect that's the president constituency. That is common sense and human nature everywhere in the world.
Freddie, let me help lead us away from that, because it as I said, it's a past. Might have been their thinking or non-thinking, for the matter of fact. But you know what? Just now, Leno was speaking to the dispensation in the AFC general membership in terms of how they will think and wanted a movement from Raphael to Kemraj without looking at what was race. And you know, I was proud of this party, and even your introduction, when you said that myself and Leno might have been with the party, but you put in your own or two. Freddie, you did put in.
But I was not in the leadership.
You were in the leadership.
I would have
you might not have been a member, but you put in your fair share.
I am telling you, I have always been a scrawny person, and I have lost all the fights I had in primary school. I always remember Wapit put me and blacked me out. But I would not sit in any party and watch those leaders behaving the way they did in the AFC without trying physically to throw them out the window. I remember, and I have raised this in my columns so many times, and I keep raising it. It's something that rests not in my mind. The psyche is much more of a profound part of your mental makeup. The election is won, and you guys are in a room, educated people. He was in the room, and he had a master's from the Berlin School of Economics, with Ginger Besessar degree in law and sociology. And the AFC's parceling out portfolios, and he, Besessar, trench people, soldiers, but also intellectual people. And about 5 leaders agree to pick up the phone and call a lady who I never saw in the AFC, and I campaigned for the AFC 2011-2015. Would you like to have the Ministry of the Environment? She turned it down because of salary. I want to know why you, Besessar, Carrington, him, did not there and then lift those leaders up and throw them through the window. Who wants to answer that?
Maybe, Freddie, the position of the party now might have suggested that we would not have done, but the people of Guyana might have done that. Can we not say the position of this party at this stage really cannot go? So I have no regrets not physically doing that. But persons know my concern for lots of things.
Well, I know, looking at your sides, you couldn't do it.
And the position they find themselves in, can we not say the people of Guyana would have lifted them and thrown them out the window? Can we not say that?
Well, I think the people did that.
Yes, and
it's just that the people expected you guys to do that for them. But let us stick with the AFC. We go back to Leonard Craig. Leonard, I feel that the AFC has now gone, and maybe some third party will come and replace it, but that doesn't look like it's on the horizon. We're going to take all the time tonight without any other questions from any other dimension if we continue on what went wrong with the AFC. But these programs, researchers will look at it. There are thousands of people out there who want to know, why did the AFC implode or disintegrate? What happened to that multiracial movement? Because you spoke about the multiracial movement. It's the same question I will direct to Audwin. What happened to the AFC? I can tell you what happened to the WPA in the 70s, but I am the host, you're the guest.
And Freddie, it was multiracial indeed, because there is no conference that they might have been more than 50% of any one race, right, Leno? You will get maybe 40 something Indian, 40 something black, and some American there. I don't think at any one conference I saw more than 50%. So a party was really, really multiracial. But Leno answer the question.
Beyond being multiracial in numbers, I think the way people carry themselves, the way they made decisions, it had a multiracial flavor to everything they do. And that is why I continue to say that those people will respond to any party that has a messaging or a greater messaging around multiracism or multiracialism in politics. And that will remain a fact for a while to come. Also in the AFC were a set of people who are just not big party people. They are not going to vote for the PPP, they're not going to vote for the PNC. They are small party people. And we noticed that in the 2020 elections, when you had a rush of small parties, and all of them had
about 7,000+
among themselves. No, 7. You're underestimating how much they had. Almost 25,000.
Nationally, the small
party. When you put all of them together, it was split up.
No, I'm questioning that. No, they're not 25,000 among them. No,
the three parties in Parliament had about 7,000 among them.
The rest
might have just been 5,000 or less than that.
7, 5, 12.
I think it's smoking.
Yes, you're right. About 12,000. About 12,000. Sorry about that. About 12,000. Right? Because but what I'm saying. But that's significant. Yeah, it's enough. It's enough. No, the point I was about to make earlier, that if you survey all of these small parties, they are made up with former AFC activists, almost all of them. TCI, Change Guyana, ANOG. Initiative. They're TCI, yeah. TCI, the new movement, all of them had in their leadership people who supported the AFC either at the activist level, membership level, or otherwise. And so what I'm saying, they're a collection of people who are just not big party voters. They have a small party, they're gonna more likely to support that, or they're gonna form their own group or something like that. And again, when put together, it is sufficient to cause seat shift. And as we noticed, there was a joinder of lists, and they
New
got
movement,
and they
Justice
got one
and Liberty
seat,
Party, and ANOG,
right? And they got one seat, and so a collection of these parties, singularly by themselves, they would not be able to match what the AFC did, and that is history. But if put together, the votes in a proportional representation system is sufficient to cause movement in seats. Having said that, your question that you're looking for the answer for is what happened to the AFC. I don't think there's any one thing that somebody could point to say, hey, this is what happened. It's a number a number of things put together. It is the party's outlook. I think the top tier leaders were more middle class in their approach to life, whereas the maximum, the greater number of voters didn't follow that middle class concept. People had an expectation of how they wanted the AFC to behave, and the AFC did not behave that way. And I don't think the AFC tried to even walk a tightrope between expectation and what leadership wanted. It was more top heavy towards leaning towards leaders' concept of what AFC should be and should look like, whereas the people wanted AFC to go in a different direction. And AFC didn't, in my opinion, didn't even attempt to walk that tightrope. And so you had a somewhat of a tying of that fervor people had for AFC, and why a lot of people clamored in 2015 for the coalition. Well, not half, I don't want to put a number to it, but a significant number of voters vote for that idea of the coalition, not necessarily specifically for the AFC or specifically for APNU, but that concept got a lot of people excited. But the concept did not live on. I think AFC became more part of APNU, more subsumed, more they subsume themselves too much in the concept of collective responsibility. What people wanted to see was the way coalition politics, the shape of coalition politics around the world. We are independent parties. We don't have to agree all the time. We have our own set of principles. You have your set of principles. We do some trading with respect to, we know we can't get everything. And even though you will get most of what you want, we have to make our mark. And the way AFC went about making their mark is not in that way. And I think the AFC suffered because of that. Probably someday somebody should write a book entitled The Making of Charandas. And I could talk about that at probably some other time, or unless you have room for that now. The Making of Charandas.
We got 16 minutes more. 17.
Right, so we don't have time to discuss that, but
The Making of Charandas.
Yes.
You're gonna write it?
Essentially, let me just put a quick synopsis on that. Now, when you listen to Charandas, he had a couple of things that he said in his different speeches that he made in different places. And one of the complaints he had, and Audwin here was a member of parliament.
Yeah, I'm coming to him.
And he mentioned the same thing to me. Right at the time I was in China, I called from China to see how things are doing. And they all had the same complaint. They say, Leno, these people don't consult us. They don't talk to us. We just got to turn up the parliament, and whatever we see there, we vote on it. Now, the PPP could be successful in doing that because they are one party. The PNC could be successful in doing that because they're one party and people follow comrade leader. But when you have a second party subsumed in another party and people feel they should have an independence, and you behave as though you are a monolith, then people are going to developed the Charan Das mentality, right? And so when I talk about the making of Charan Das, I'm not talking about Charan Das himself. I am just talking about the concept.
It symbolized.
What exactly. And so that existed, and that was brewing, and that complaint and the blind eye was turned to it, and the AFC did nothing to. I remember, let me just make this point quickly again. Sorry about that, Rutherford. I came from China to spend about 3 weeks during the summer of 2018. When the Charan Das thing occurred, 2018, right?
December 2018.
Right, it occurred in December. I came home in the summer. Well, Guyana don't have summer, but where I came
just
from had summer.
Local government, I think,
right, just before the local government, whenever that was. And I had a talk with a certain leader of the AFC. And I said, Comrade Leader, AFC need its own quasi-cabinet. AFC needs its own. You need a structure for your parliamentarians. You need parliamentarians to research things, put forward laws that their community and their country would like them to do that.
He wants to come
and
in.
So on.
But when you speak to the mock cabinet or the side cabinet,
you gotta tell our viewers you were failure as a parliamentarian. You have to tell your viewers.
I recall saying to the AFC, the leadership, you know what? Let us put together small teams. I even said, you know what? I can be on the sector with education, let's say, and put together small teams so that they can support our position on different things. And the guys don't want that. In addition to our 4 backbench MP, myself, well, we were close. I am the last seat, then Emraj, Charan Das. So we must be chatting most of the time, because most time the presentations are not worth much. So you'll be chatting, and there was clearly we were not pleased by the non-consultation, and we were not part of things. Carrington, we'll come over, chat at lunchtime, whatever. And one day, sometime around 2016 late, I said to the guys, man, we are all disturbed. Let's go downstairs at the lunch. And I said, let us discuss this thing. And no use we keep rowing among ourselves. I will take it to the leadership. So I went upstairs, and I went from the Prime Minister right through. And you know what? We will at least, beyond all the WhatsApp group, we will form a group now, because we want, these 4 persons in the back there, want to be talking to you. All the guys said yes. It was formed. And okay, yes, Audwin, yes, good idea, yes, Audwin. And that was the end of it. And if you know Carrington well, Carrington is there shying all the time and asking questions and wanting dialogue. And it was silence. Because basically they felt that the 4 backbenchers meant nothing. But further to that, it must be known that I recall one time we were as a party, a coalition MP at the convention center. And I realized that the junior ministers had a problem too. They felt that they were sidelined. The junior minister, when we were speaking of us backbenchers, the junior ministers were saying the same thing. So you back again to why the AFC would have faltered. And Leno would have mentioned those persons beyond AFC and PNC who wanted to see the coalition. I wanted to feel that I want to feel that those persons were mainly interested in good governance more than power. And for the AFC members, crazy. But many of us wanted, we weren't too care whether we ever win the election, but we wanted to see a better Guyana. The average AFC person before 2015, you ask that the average person, they wanted a better Guyana. You had a sense of pride being AFC because you felt you were not responsible for putting a blessed country in the position that it was by 2015. You feel that burden was not on you. And that was the thinking of the average AFC person. And the average person was really, really disappointed. Quickly. We were disappointed. We were disappointed in a direction, as Leno say, you were becoming subsumed by PNC. It was so bad. And at any NEC, the battles were always on. Because the average man sitting, or the average person membership sitting beyond their table, had a serious problem where we were going from very, very early. It did not start in late. As soon as the 2016 local government was over, the average person in the party on the low seats were totally disappointed. It was the show of the bullyism of the PNC, and the average person could not have taken that. So the position they are in now, it is not beyond recovery, and the problem, I think, the real core members that would have left been hurting to them. I don't see many of the new members are real AFC persons, seriously. I don't know what your views on that, Ledo, but some of the new ones, I don't think, they came on for a quick ride. I don't see that principle that all the members had are part of that group, that new group. That's my view on that.
I wouldn't judge anybody's motive. That is a matter for those people, and they will.
Well, the Freudian analysis,
right?
Freudian analyst. Yeah.
However, I also people should think of the concept I raised earlier, the making of Charandas. And again, I'm repeating for people who don't quite understand, because I'm reading some of these comments on Facebook. Not referring to the man Charandas. I'm referring to the concept within the concept of what ended up happening ultimately. And that could have been solved, that could have been prevented. It was all preventable. Simply, the AFC just needed to be inclusive. The AFC just needed to have a program. In my estimation, I don't think the AFC even had a program in government. So you couldn't go into an AFC ministry and say, look, check all of our manifestos prior. These are the things we said are our principles. And you could see a program matching it. And it becomes a sacred cow that if the PNC even try to touch it, you're going to get war in this coalition. Not necessarily you're going to break up the coalition, but at least you're going to have, exactly, and the Guyanese people would respect that. That, look, this small party, you weren't asking to run the whole government, but in each of your ministry, you have this one program that you're running as a party. You let the country know, you go, you consult with them, and you come back and you negotiate with your other party to get this program off the ground. And they should have had that in every ministry. I tried to get some of that started, some of the Aide to germinate, but it just never worked. So people retreated into their individual ministries, and there were even some attempts to claim everything that was done in that ministry was done under the AFC. So this is an AFC ministry, and the AFC ministry did that, which is,
confrontational kind of.
You're right. And so that lack of direction in government got a lot of people disappointed. People's expectations weren't met and balanced, and so on. And that, in my opinion, is the center, is the hub upon which the decline of the AFC, rotated, among many other things. But I think from the public's view, right? I'm not talking here only as an insider. From the public's view, that is what led to a lot of the decline.
Audwin, how do you were a former parliamentarian. You were a parliamentarian, you were in the National Executive. Craig was the Assistant General Secretary, he was in the National Executive. When you went to Linden, and people say, Rutherford, I want to see a man, and they complain to you. When you went back to Bobby's from your home village where you came from, and people seeing, and you seeing these dashed expectations, shouldn't Joel Edmond, Charandas Prasad, Audwin Rutherford, Leonard Craig, Marlon Williams, shouldn't this group of people who felt that, look, this thing was going astray, why wasn't there some secret meeting of about 10 of you guys to say, listen, no man, this has to stop. This is killing the AFC. I don't know, because I wasn't privy to those kind of things. But was there ever an attempt to confront these big leaders and say, what the hell are you doing? Look, the writing is on the wall.
Freddie, you are... Anyway, let me...
You give him
maybe the closest it came to that was 2017...
at the convention center?
No, we had our at Videnoop. We had elections at Videnoop.
Yeah.
The closest it came to that, there weren't discussions beyond the top group, and I was part of some of those discussions. But it was an attempt to start to kind of derail some of the top members. Facts be told, and that resulted in Marla Williams becoming the general secretary, because that was a kind of big upset for Marla Williams' top seat.
A founding member,
right? And everything did not pan out as a group wanted, but that was an attempt actually to say that something was going wrong. People are clearly saying things are going wrong. And what took place was this earliest situation we Craig spoke about, is where you had a leader wanting to hold on and a change of leadership. We demand a change of leadership, because the membership beyond race would demand the same change of leadership after 2 terms. It just automatically happened. But that took precedence over a wider shake-up. But Marlon becoming GS was one of a little quiet move to have that difference. It was a complaint, and it resulted in that. It did not go the full distance, but there was some effort.
They didn't reach its climax.
I think we are not paying enough tribute to the formation of state power in party leadership.
What it does, difficult.
All right. Let me give an example. In the original Commonsburg Accord, it was agreed that the 2 parties will meet ever so often. I think it was 3 months interval at least. I can't remember exactly, but ever so often, let's use that term, to meet at a political level. Forget state power. You're going into this retreat at the political level and have discussion, party leader to party leader, not Mr. President to, you know. And it never happened, not a single meeting, because state power was used to I have a friend normally say boss and people. State power was used to create a boss and people situation. So if you step away from that and go into a retreat, you can no longer do boss and people. And I think that is one of the greater mistakes that was made. And we saw it even down to the end when President Granger said based on the Constitution, he doesn't have to name a prime ministerial candidate. And after the election, he will choose his prime minister. Earlier, he started saying that. And that was an extension of the same thing, boss and people.
Well, you know what was the original composition of the top 5 in the original Commonsburg Accord? A president, a prime minister. What was the composition of those 3 vice presidents?
Well, yeah, that also.
That was a breakdown, Leonard. The public must know that in that Commonsburg Accord, it was the AFC will get 2 of those 3, Leonard. Let the public know that. And instantly there was a cheat. Instantly from the beginning there was a cheat. And most people don't know that. But you know, even today you were mentioning boss and people, but in the same Videnoop conference, what took place is, I recall I objected publicly to it. There was a showing of all the ministers on the table. I can't remember if you were out the call. The minister sat on their table. And I said, no, this is a conference and this is a party matter. If a minister is with no executive position, he's have no right to be on a table. This is a conference. I was going up in the same upset that was expected. I did a bad thing in terms of I was challenging for vice chairman, which was wild. There's no way I should have. I got a couple of votes, but there was no way at that time. But that was part of the same makeup to upset the whole system, where Marlon became GS. And I'm publicly saying now, well, most people know in the party that I challenged for vice chair, which was not a good thing. At the end, Cathy beat both myself and Miss Lowe. Miss Lowe felt that, if I wasn't in the race, she might have been victorious. But when you add up the two votes, it wasn't making our votes. He still said that, things would have been different.
Our operator signal, our time has come. Just very briefly. I know both of you personally over a long period of time, and I know both of you like politics. So you're going to stay in politics, both of you?
Yeah. For me, is what I like. What I envisage myself doing, probably. I don't want to go that far to say probably until my dying day, but I got some contributions to make. I got some of that in me. I want to continue to make contribution, and for me, I'll be around.
Audwin, but I know you're still in politics. You're a candidate.
My intention was really to get out of politics, and I offer myself as a candidate in the last elections. But I can say to John Public, I will never offer myself on a list again, but I will be involved in politics. I don't think that is the only stage of politics to be on a list. Okay. You can be active without being on a list.
Let me say I've known both of you, and I will recommend to the powers that be that in the two of you, you have the kind of capacity to do good for Guyana. I think my knowledge of you, some of you, Carrington, Joel Edmond, you guys are of a type of political character that this country could use. And I hope both of you stay in politics for the sake of a new political culture in Guyana. Our time has come. Leonard Gildarie is out receiving treatment. He said he should be back. For those of you asking about my columns, for the past 7 weeks, I've been doing a daily column for the Chronicle. Go online in the Chronicle, you see the tab that says opinion, press on it, my name comes up, and you will see all the columns. It was nice having Audwin Rutherford and Leonard Craig analyzing the failure of politics vis-a-vis the AFC in government. And quite interesting they take on the local government elections. We will see you next Wednesday. As I usually say, they say in Japan, sayonara. They say in Italy, arrivederci. We say in Guyana, catch you later, man.